Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. The show where we talk about wrestling and whether or not it makes sense. Now, we are just a few days removed from Extreme Rules, the pay-per-view by the WWE. What was its proper title? It had like a big horror show at the Extreme Rules or something like that.
That's correct. Yeah, the horror show at Extreme Rules.
I mean, they got half of it right.
It was a horror show, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you know what? Some of the rules were a bit extreme.
Yeah, we'll give them that.
So I guess technically they delivered. You know what I mean? You can't fault them for that. They gave us exactly what they said they were going to give us.
Yeah, and anyone expecting any different is,
is a bloody fool.
Yeah.
A big idiot who had faith in a company they once believed in and admired. Is that what you're saying to me?
Pretty much.
Wow. So we're gonna talk about the show, I guess. I mean, it was on a Sunday, and I was extremely hungover on Sunday. I haven't been that hungover in a while, so that was fun. And I tried. Oh, how I did try to stay awake and watch that show live, but I couldn't do it. Like one, I was very sleepy, and two, I wasn't that enthused about all the stuff I had seen. So after the Asuka match, I was like, I can't go another hour and a half. I have to go to sleep. Turns out I only was off by 2 matches.
Yeah.
So I was very close, but honest to God, after having watched those matches again, the next day, don't know if I would have been happy staying up that late, being that sleepy, just to watch that. So I guess start at the beginning.
Seems like a sensible place to start.
It does. Did you watch the pre-show?
No, I didn't start from that beginning.
Okay, good. I also didn't watch the pre-show. Usually I do. This time I did not. I had other things on my mind. I wasn't worrying too much about the pre-show. I can't remember. It was Kevin Owens versus somebody. I can't remember who he was fighting.
Buddy Murphy, and I believe Kevin Owens won.
Oh, well. I'm sure that would have been a fine match. Just fine. Perfectly acceptable. So the first match on the main show was a tag team championship match.
Yes, a tables match.
Tables match. Because it's Extreme Rules.
Hell yeah.
What's more extreme than a tables match?
Makes sense to me.
Except for the rest of the fucking show, I guess, which was pretty extreme. The New Day were defending against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. We're both. Well, I think we're both big Cesaro fans, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I assume we're both big Shinsuke Nakamura fans.
Me, not so much. I haven't been blown away by his stuff in WWE outside of his debut against Sami Zayn way back when. He's just not really seemed to click into gear.
Okay, well, I really like him. I'm a big Shinsuke Nakamura fan. So every time I see him on TV, I want him to win. Although I don't always think he's going to. And boy, lo and behold, Shinsuke Nakamura wins, and Cesaro also wins, I suppose. But there you go, new tag team champions. I was like, this is a good start to the show.
Yeah.
I said that because of the result. I didn't like the match itself was it was all right.
I thought it was pretty decent. The thing I liked about it the most was that they kind of kept dragging out all these tables and setting them up, and no one was going through them, so it sort of kind of kept you guessing for the big finish what it was going to be. And then when they got to the big finish, when it was like a super bomb off the corner and through 2 tables set up at ringside, that felt like, oh, holy shit, that's like a big proper finish to this match.
Yeah, it looked good. That was a good powerbomb. Pretty clean. I liked it. But yeah, the match itself, you're like, wouldn't it have been nice to see the New Day wrestle Cesaro and Shinsuke? Wouldn't that have been nice? Just a little a little regular tag team match for the people who don't watch SmackDown, which is probably a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But Shinsuke won. I'm not gonna complain.
Yeah, I mean it's nice to see them shake up the tag team scene and to give Cesaro and Nakamura something to do as well, like a bit of focus. So exactly. Can't complain too much.
Right. So opening match, okay.
Yes.
I think that's the way we'll describe it. It was okay. What the heck was next?
That would be the SmackDown Women's Championship match between Bayley and Nikki Cross.
Oh yeah. What did you think of that one?
Well, the story they told heading into this was a bit weird. Like they were kind of portraying Nikki Cross as this sort of nervous rookie who was, out of her depth almost when, she's been on the main roster for like going on 18 months or whatever. She's had shots at the women's title before, and she's even been like a former women's tag team champion too. So like it seemed like a weird kind of way to build her up as like a challenger. But as for the match itself, like it's decent enough, but again, it didn't feel like it went above that. It was just good, but it wasn't anything special.
Yeah, I agree with that. I felt like just something didn't click. We've said that before in the show, and you can tell like when you watch a match, you just like something's just not clicking about this, And like they're two very good women's wrestlers, but I don't know, man. Just something about that match didn't. It was fine, but it wasn't like you got to see this fucking thing,
Mm-hmm.
Which was a shame because I think those two could probably do a match like that.
Yeah, and it was the match as well, which didn't have like a stipulation to it. So the fact that it ends with like Sasha giving Bayley her like boss brass knucks or whatever they are, and that playing into the finish was like, oh, surely they could have done something with that in the build up and maybe added a additional stipulation to this, like gone full Vince Russo and had like a brass knucks on the pole or whatever.
Oh, John.
But come on, I mean, they could have done something just to spice it up a little bit.
God, you're always putting things on poles, you know that? One thing I've noticed about you is that number one, you put things on poles. Number two, every week you're starting more and more like Vince Russo. I'm starting to think that you might be Vince Russo in disguise.
No, bro, I don't know where you're getting this from.
The mask's starting to slip now.
No.
I see it. There we go. We've got Vince Russo on the show. I feel like if Vince Russo was on the show, everybody would know about it.
Yeah.
Like there would have been a lot more insane fucking things said on this show. That would have been newsworthy. And then people would be like, I think that's Vince Russo over there.
Yeah.
But he's got a new beard over the top of his old beard. So nobody knows. And he just looks like a crazy. Anyway, the point is, yeah, that match was alright. What was the match after that? We're flying through this shit so far.
Well, it was technically supposed to be the United States Championship match
between
Apollo Crews and MVP, but it never happened because, they claimed Crews was injured from when Lashley gave him the full Nelson, but it sounds as if like Apollo Crews may have caught the old coronavirus, which is keeping him out of action for a little bit. So
the good old virus.
Yes.
Yeah, dude, I was disappointed in that because I thought that was gonna be a good match. Last week we were talking about this show and I was apprehensive because it sounded like there was gonna be a whole lot of bullshit on the show, but I'm like, well, at least we'll get some good matches on it too because, Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler that has the potential to be fun, and Asuka versus Sasha Banks, that's gonna be a good fun match, and I thought Apollo Crews versus MVP. That'll be a fun match. I was really looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just didn't happen. MVP comes out. He's like, I'm the champion now, but he's not really.
Yeah.
Just bear that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
MVP comes out, takes the belt, walks away with it, pretends he's the champion. All right? Just keep that in the back of your head that MVP did that in the third segment of the night. Okay.
Yes.
It's very important for later. It's what they call foreshadowing, I think. In literature, I don't fucking know. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed about that. I don't know if he does have, like, we can possibly speculate. It's just that his results didn't come back good. I heard they didn't come back. I heard he hadn't got his like the all clear to go on the show.
Okay.
That's what I had heard. Like, he just hadn't, having no result, meant that they couldn't say he was negative or positive, so they couldn't put him on the TV.
Yeah, he couldn't take the risk.
I don't know if, it could easily be what they're saying to gloss over the fact that he's crippled with the coronavirus. But as far as I'm aware, it's just because he didn't get his test results back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Was he on Raw?
No, he wasn't on Raw either.
I mean, that's not so good.
Yeah.
That's not a good sign. You never know. You never know, though, because I saw a video Mick Foley put up on Twitter. It was like, I took a coronavirus test. I got my results back 11 days later.
Yeah.
He's like, that doesn't help anybody because I might have already got it again. What the fuck, man? Why do I have to wait 11 days? I mean, he didn't say it like that. But, me and Mick Foley were two different people, clearly. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I was bummed about that match not happening. But, is what it is. I guess, I mean, some of the other matches might have more time.
Yeah.
You could assume. All right, so what was the thing that happened after this?
It was the match we were all looking forward to as Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio faced off in the first ever eye for an eye match.
I feel like you could say first and last ever. I don't think that's like the hyperbole for us to go ahead and just guess that that's never gonna happen ever again.
Yeah.
No. I've heard some things with this. I know what I thought when I saw this, and I heard some things on Twitter, and I'm like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with this. But we had been talking about this match before. I don't know if we did it on the show or like, behind the scenes, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
But we were trying to figure out how it would work, and we surmised that it would be some kind of cinematic match. And I thought what they would do is gimmick Rey Mysterio's mask so that you could hide, a fake eye or like some kind of prosthetic underneath the mask, right?
Yeah.
Rey Mysterio comes out for this match. Seth Rollins has already done something to him for the build-up for this match. So he comes out with like a little kind of black eye patch over his right eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's it. They did it. That's the gimmick. Seth Rollins is going to reach into he's just going to pull that black eye patch out and there's going to be like a fake eye on it or something. I did it. I predicted it. They got something right for once. Hooray, hurrah, hooray. That wasn't quite how that happened. That actually didn't factor into it whatsoever. Because halfway through the match, Rey Mysterio pulls the eye patch off himself.
Yeah.
And can reveal that he has two eyes. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe this won't be garbage. What did you think of this match?
Well, I thought, first of all, it was good that it wasn't more cinematic bullshit like we kind of were expecting, because I don't think there's room enough on these shows for two of these kind of matches, and I mean, you could argue there's not room enough, reason enough for one. But yeah, like, I thought the actual like match itself was pretty decent again. Like, it felt like a pretty like volatile fight between the two of them, like a proper grudge match. Like, they were really beating the shit out of each other. So that definitely made it entertaining in that sense. But like the whole like eye plucking thing it doesn't really make for like good, like near fall spots or like eye removal spots. You can't really tease it very well.
An eye removal spot?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like they had to kind of work around it to try and tease it at various points of the match, like breaking the kendo stick and trying to jam the bamboo in there and stuff like that. And it's like, it's hard to add drama to it if you're doing that. And then when it gets to the actual finish itself, I thought that was really weak in terms of they just essentially went back to like the spot that they did however long ago it was, like 2 months, whatever, with the stairs. But like, well, the stairs didn't really pop Rey Mysterio's eye out the first time, so I don't really understand why it did this time. Like, it was really anticlimactic, and just, it seemed like 1 minute Rey Mysterio is just like kind of casually laying on top of the stairs after Seth's been pushing his head like into the edge of the stairs, and then Seth wanders off and he starts wandering back, and then Rey Mysterio's eyes popped out. It's like, huh? What the hell? How did that happen?
Right, like, maybe this is just me, but the way that it felt like, the way that they were hyping the match and the way the match was described, you know, maybe it's just me and my strange, you know, take on the English language, but I thought they really would just be like pulling an eye out. They said we have to pull the guy's eye out 1,000,000 times, right? I thought that meant fingers were gonna be attached to eyes. Yank it out, right?
Yeah.
I'll admit that I thought that because I'm very unfamiliar with the whole process of removing an eye. I'm not savvy about it whatsoever. So, you know, to see them go through all these weird kind of spots, because after a while I'm like, you're just jabbing his eye out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're destroying the eye. You're not like pulling it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, you know, you're stepping on it instead of like grabbing it. You know, you're ruining the eye. You're squishing it to oblivion. So I don't know, man. There was a point in this match where I did like it, where I'm like, okay, you know, things are clicking. This was really fun. These two guys know how to work. But like, I thought it started off really not that interesting, and then towards the end, I think probably because you know that it's an eye for an eye match, like it gets they're, you know, good. They'll go back to the eye, and the commentators will hype up the eye. Once you kind of like realize what it is you're supposed to be watching, you're like, I don't get it. You know, it that really takes you out of it.
Yeah.
Once they keep like drilling into your head, they're like, the other guy's got to pull your eye out. You're like, this is stupid. You know, once again, like, I know it's Extreme Rules, but why couldn't we just watch Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins fight? Wouldn't that be fun? You're right in that there's not a whole lot of suspense.
No.
With you know, trying to jab like the end of a chair into somebody's eye, because like that's part of the fun of wrestling, is like the near falls, or like, you know, grabbing the ropes and stuff like that, or like, how's he gonna get out of this one?
Yeah.
But if he's just holding a chair, you know, like Seth is trying to poke the chair to your eye, you just have to hold the end of the chair so it doesn't go in your eye, and that's it. That's, you know, that's the counter for that one. So a lot of the way through, I think somewhere in the middle I was starting to dig it, but for a lot of it I was just, it's an eye for an eye match, you know. And then
I kind of think that the problem with it though was they didn't go far enough as well. Like,
that's the problem, is it?
Yeah, I think so, because like, if you're doing an eye for an eye match, like, and promising that someone's gonna get their eye removed, then just fucking go for it, man.
You want to see the eye, right? You want to see him pull the eye out. You want to see Seth Rollins walking around holding up an eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
even if it's like a little ping pong on with like a dot drawn on it or something, but like a
little Muppet eye.
Yeah. We didn't get anything.
Well, there was a little bit where you could see the eye.
Kind of. You could kind of see, you know, like a bit of white between Rey's fingers or whatever.
Right, but like once you saw it, it looked so, like, it really, like, it looked worse than a fucking ping pong. All the black marker on it. Like, it looked shocking. And then Seth Rollins like throwing up at ringside.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't I don't like this. I don't like. I don't understand how Seth Rollins jabbing a very pointy, sharp piece of metal into your eye wouldn't just destroy your eye. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like the very point of that metal steel step will like get stuck in your eye and pull it out.
Yeah.
Like, if a piece of metal goes into your eye will be destroyed. It's shattered. Like, it's not gonna pull out. You know what I mean? Like, it's not gonna dangle out of your head. It's done. No. That's the end of your eye. And that's what happened all the way through this match, was just Seth Rollins trying to destroy their eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not only do you not see the eye, but you don't see any impact. Because there's nothing to see. The eye is destroyed. Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's such a ironically, it's such a non-visual thing. You know what I mean? Because you can't really see the impact of it. And you're like, this is... As if he really had to go through and describe exactly why this match was stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at the when you break it down, it's stupid because Seth Rollins jabbed out Rey Mysterio's eye, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're like, I don't... It's not that I don't like injury angles, because obviously they work for kayfabe and they make sense when they make sense. Like, an eye injury angle would totally work sense if the whole point of the match wasn't to deliberately jab out somebody's eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you're just like, oh, this is all like stupid. I know. Anyway, but I think it's safe to say that match, you know, was pretty much what we expected, aka not great.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was better than I expected, just because my expectations were so low. But yeah, it was weird and disappointing, and yeah, I don't think it lived up to like the billing that they tried giving it as well.
So at the moment, we've got 2 matches that were just okay, mm-hmm. 1 match that didn't happen, and 1 match that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so that's not a great record.
Yeah, it's not off to the best of starts, this show.
However, you know, there's plenty more to go. It could come back. You don't know. So what came after that fun fest?
After that was the Raw Women's Championship match with Asuka defending against Sasha Banks.
Ah, okie doke. Now, this match didn't really have any silly stipulations to it either.
No, it didn't.
Much like the SmackDown Women's Championship match.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's been well established how much we love Asuka.
Yeah.
And, you know, Sasha Banks was, you know, one of the 4 horsewomen. We know she can work. She's a good kid. Very good character. Like, I always thought Sasha Banks was like a better character than she was a wrestler.
Oh, I think she's a hell of a wrestler as well, though.
I thought she was... well, I mean, like, all of them are good. Let's be fair here. Like, they're all incredibly talented women. But I always thought that, like, Sasha... Her best strength was that her character was so good. I always thought. I thought, like, she... Out of the 4 of them, she was the one who got her character the best. But anyway, I was like, all right, let's see how this... I had some high hopes for this match. I really did. And you know what? For the most part, in my opinion, those hopes were realized.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for the majority of this match, and you feel free to tell me what you thought about this match afterwards, but for the majority of this match, maybe like 95% of the match, I'm like, this is really good.
Yeah.
This is really fun. This is exactly what I wanted. Finally, you know, I sat through this show with a hangover and it's been not fun so far. Let's, you know, finally we got something good. This is what I wanted. Just 2 fucking wrestlers wrestling and did a really good job at it. And everything makes sense and everything's fun. And then, like, the end happened, right? And I don't know what you think about the end, but I would just sum it up by saying, what the fuck? So, what did you think of this match?
Yeah, I totally agree in that it was probably, well, not probably, it was the best part of the show up until this point, I'd say. Like, for sure, they were going out there and having what seemed like it was going to be a really good match, one of the best ones that they've had together. Like, even when there was like a moment sort of towards the end where Sasha like was on the second rope and was about to jump at Asuka, but she slipped. But like even in that
but
moment,
I thought everything after that though.
Yeah, that was definitely the turning point. But like even in that moment, it seemed like she was selling it in a way where like she like they were basically going to recover from it and then get back to having a good match again. But then yeah, obviously everything went down with Bayley constantly trying to get into the ring, and then Asuka spraying the green mist and hitting the referee. And then Bayley basically taking the ref's t-shirt and deciding to count the 3 count herself.
Yeah, so that was a very busy finish.
Yeah,
I think is the best way to describe that, other than shite. Either or, I think, are acceptable here. Very, very busy. Like a lot of moving parts that didn't all seem like they were working together. And then this weird finish that, obviously wasn't legit. And I dare say, if it had been handled a little bit like better, if it wasn't as busy, if they got to the point quicker and did that finish on like a different show, you'd be like, well, that makes sense, and it's more heat for Sasha Banks and Bayley, but also they've been these two like despicable heels who are just doing whatever they want anyway. That on a different show would have played into their hands perfectly. Well, because we already seen this whole taking the belt and running away with an angle from MVP earlier in the show, I was like, so that's twice people are just gonna run away with somebody else's championship like on the same show. That was not good when you think of it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just lazy storytelling to have the same thing happen twice in the same show.
Right, and I wish they'd have come up with something better for the United States Championship angle, because that way, at least the ending to this match would have been a bit more fresh. I mean, like I said, it was still very busy. Like I don't think it needed to be that fucking complicated. So I don't like that either. The fact that it was just it just turned into a mess by the end of it.
Yeah.
Which was such a shame. Such a shame, because it was so much fun, like getting into it.
Absolutely.
Oh, what a downer, So that was weird. That was the best match of the night, ruined by shoddy booking and kind of a complicated, like a match ending,
Yeah, but I think this is all part of WWE's kind of philosophy these days as well. Like, you think back to how it used to be when they basically relied on pay-per-view revenue and trying to get people to tune in and buy the pay-per-view so then they could make the majority of their money for the year. But like now it's all about like the TV deals and stuff, and obviously in terms of ratings they've been dropping like a stone for like the past 10 years straight, and it's been hitting record lows over the last 6 months as well. So they need to do something to encourage fans to like tune into Raw and SmackDown, I guess, which is why they've given us this kind of bullshit finish as some sort of like cliffhanger ending, just to try and make people tune into Raw the next night and find out what happens next, which it's all good in practice, but like if you start doing that too much, it's just going to make these pay-per-views or special events, whatever you want to call them, like borderline pointless, really, because they're conditioning the audience to think that you're not going to see conclusive finishes to matches or ends to feuds or stuff like that. So it's like, well, what's the point of watching these things if all the main stuff is going to be happening on Raw or SmackDown.
Exactly. Like, we've got used to watching these pay-per-views and kind of doing reviews on them because like we're very familiar with the concept of the pay-per-views being like big events where things happen and there's a lot to talk about. But I don't want to get to a point where we're just reviewing fucking every episode of Raw and SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of because I want where's the fun in that? That's gonna get really old really quickly. Because we'll just get fed up of it. We're like, fuck this show. I'm never watching wrestling again. You know what I mean? I don't want it to turn into that point where the pay-per-views are also garbage. But, hey, we haven't got to the end of this show yet. So things could still pick up. There's still 2 matches to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
The heavyweight championship matches. Although one of them they involved the heavyweight champions. I don't think the main event was for the championship.
No, it wasn't.
So the next one was Drew McIntyre versus Dolph Ziggler.
That's correct.
And I thought this has the potential to be a fun match. Dolph Ziggler comes out and he's all like, I know what the stipulation is and I'm not telling anybody until I have to, right? So that's the gimmick for this, is that Dolph Ziggler gets to pick the stipulation.
Mm-hmm.
What's he going to pick? There's so many extreme matches he could pick for extreme rules. Boy howdy, he could have a swamp fight. He could have a tables match. He could have an eye for an eye match. He could have an overly complicated finish to a women's match. He could have all of those options, But also, I thought it was really funny at the beginning of the match when your man's doing the introductions. And Dolph Ziggler says, I'm not going to tell you what the match is till I absolutely have to, right?
Yeah.
And then the referee goes, all right, well, this next match is scheduled for 1 fall. And you're like, how do you know? He didn't and Dolph Ziggler doesn't tell him. Dolph Ziggler doesn't say it might not be. Might be a submission match. Might be a ladder match. You know what I mean? Those don't end in falls. So that's that's me nitpicking. But I'm like, come on, man, it's right there. So Dolph Ziggler gets on the mic and he's like, all right, we're gonna have a match. We're gonna have one of the most popular matches in WWE history, in wrestling history. We're gonna have the good old Dolph Ziggler gets no disqualifications, but Drew McIntyre doesn't match. Remember that classic match? Remember those classic days with anything goes, but only if your name is Dolph Ziggler match?
Yeah.
And also if Drew McIntyre does anything to get himself disqualified, the championship can change hands.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very long title for a match. You can see why they phased it out.
Yeah.
Because it was getting hard to put on posters to advertise their main event. Yeah. And also, Dolph Ziggler wasn't always around, so you're like, oh, this isn't going to work if he's not here. For years and years in wrestling, people didn't understand what the title meant until somebody came along who was called Dolph Ziggler, and they're like, oh, now we can have this match. It makes so much sense now. What the fuck kind of stipulation was that?
So I take it you weren't a big fan of it then.
What the fuck? Right, the women's match ended in a really busy manner, right? What did we cut to next? We cut to Dolph Ziggler versus Drew McIntyre, which I thought would be a good match. And then just in trying to explain what the match was, Dolph Ziggler made it sound like the busiest fucking match of all time. Like, I'm Dolph Ziggler, so I can have no disqualifications for me, no countouts for me. But you have to do the normal thing. But then also, if you get disqualified, then I win the belt. Yeah, like this. Yeah. I'm like, what? This is what the fuck? Who? Like, who would he go to get that match sanctioned? How do you get that through? Like, how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. That used to be the thing about like the old stipulations back in the day, was that the stipulations were often done because they would benefit the heel somehow, or he could make it like benefit him. You know what I mean? And that was the hook, because the babyface would just get kind of screwed out of something by something that wasn't necessarily their fault. Like if it's a no disqualification match, then the babyface could wrestle a really good match, but then at the end the heel like uses a chair and wins the match, right?
Yeah.
that's like psychology whenever there are rules in place, right? If you're a wrestler and you come up with that idea, right? The idea where you can do whatever you want to the opponent and you won't get disqualified, but he has to be very careful. So you are the one with the crazy ass motherfucking giant advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you still can't do it. You look like an idiot.
Well, you say
not
this.
Surely, come on, man.
I will say that Dolph Ziggler, as a character, as a wrestler, has been beaten like a drum for like the past decade, to the point where I don't think he was a credible challenger coming into this show at all. Like, no one buys him as standing any chance of beating Drew McIntyre, because he's basically lost. Like, even as recently as WrestleMania and the aftermath of that, he was losing to like Otis and you know,
he's the Money in the Bank champion or whatever that is, briefcase holder. So he's clearly a very important man.
But the fact is that like Dolph Ziggler is not a credible challenger, so they needed to do something that was going to kind of give him some sort of element of advantage in the match to at least add some drama to it. So the fact that he could, win the title if Drew got counted out or disqualified, whilst also, Dolph can beat him with chairs and hit elbow drops through tables and stuff like that. That kind of it kind of needed to happen, because there was no way that anyone was buying Ziggler as standing a chance of winning the title. Like, I mean, no one really bought that he would anyway, but still, I think the way it worked as well with like Drew kind of taking all of that punishment and coming back and kind of playing by Dolph's rules and stuff, but like even when he's being screwed over, he still finds a way to kind of overcome and retain the title. I thought it made Drew look better as well than if he had just faced Dolph in a straight up match and they just exchanged holds or whatever, or done what they would have done normally. So I think it kind of worked in that sense, in that it gave Dolph a bit of credibility that he was lacking, whilst also giving Drew McIntyre like the whole perseverance and determination and grit and stuff to kind of overcome the odds and still walk out the champion.
While I'll admit that I agree that it made it did a lot to help Drew McIntyre, because as you said, what good would it do to beat Dolph Ziggler?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just for that's not like, wow, that was a tough one, given the way that they've handled Dolph Ziggler in the past. I understand that this new stipulation at least kind of gives more credibility to Drew McIntyre. I understand that. However, like that all totally proves my point, in that doesn't Dolph Ziggler look like the biggest fuck of all by coming out with this so like specific and really busy like stipulation that benefits him so much and is such a cripple to like Drew McIntyre, and he still can't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like
that's playing to Drew's to Dolph's gimmick though, because he's always losing no matter what. So
well, true, but I'm like, it just makes him look like such a mug. In saying that at least Drew now looks better because he's not just beating like a bland Dolph Ziggler. He's beating the Dolph Ziggler that like, he was fighting against the weapons and all the other damage and all that shit, right? In the same way that it builds up Drew McIntyre to do that, it makes Dolph Ziggler look like even more of a fucking putz than he was before, which is that really says a lot, doesn't it? To be more of a putz than he was by giving him everything he needs to win that heavyweight championship and still feeling, despite everything, 100% being in his total advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, like, in terms of how much money is the WWE going to make off, like, Drew McIntyre's back going forward, and how much is it going to make off Dolph Ziggler? Like, they back their horse, and you can understand why, like, you know, Dolph was there to just put over Drew. So, like, I mean, it's not like Dolph Ziggler is going to rebound from this and, you know, go on to other, like, title, you know, world title reigns or anything like that at this stage of his career. He's kind of been there, done that. He was kind of lucky to get it in the first place, really. But yeah, like, in terms of their roles going forward, like, it makes sense that Drew's gonna look, you know, like a boss coming out of this, whereas Dolph's gonna look like a chump.
And not for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty clear that this, you know, some of these, you know, pay-per-views in between the big five are sometimes criticized for being almost like filler pay-per-views.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing could have made this seem more like a filler pay-per-view than having Dolph Ziggler challenge for the champ. Like, that just reeked of we got nobody else right now. We're not doing Randy Orton. We're saving up for a bigger show than dick ass Extreme Rules, which means we got to come up with somebody immediately. We don't have anybody, so I guess it's Dolph Ziggler. You know, wasted opportunity for a lot of people. The match itself I thought was fun.
Yeah, same.
But that stipulation was stupid. You know. I didn't like. That's what I was starting to feel like about this show. I'm like, a lot of it's just like good in parts, and then just with like such a ridiculous concept.
Yeah.
Which I feel like probably brings us perfectly onto the main event.
Yeah. I mean,
well, not really. Not even. You know. I guess
main event makes it sound like a match when this is just. I don't know what to call this.
I also don't know what to call this. This was the confrontation between Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, current SmackDown Heavyweight Champion.
Universal Champion, in fact.
I can never. I'm like, well, I don't know. It's the blue one. It's the SmackDown one. So Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman have history. And I had talked to you before about one of these shows where what was it, Backlash or something?
Mm-hmm.
Where they kind of talked about like the history between these two people. And I liked that angle. I'm like, there is history here and there is a story to tell.
Yeah.
You know, Braun Strowman is what he is. He's a big guy. He can do what he does to a, you know, totally capable degree. You know, I've seen way worse big guys than him. Mm-hmm. He looks good as champion. You know what I mean? It's like the way Drew McIntyre does. Like, Drew McIntyre looks like tailor-made for that championship.
Yeah.
He looks like a champion, you know? And you can say the same about Braun Strowman. You're like, it doesn't seem out of the blue for them to pick, like, that giant fucking monster to be their champion. You know what I mean? I dig it. Bray Wyatt, talented man. You know, I thought this could be okay. Because the John Cena thing at WrestleMania against Bray Wyatt, that wasn't a match. You know, like the Undertaker and AJ Styles, like that was the one I enjoyed the most, because out of all the cinematic matches, that's the one I've enjoyed the most, because really it was just two guys fighting each other.
Yeah.
And like you can cut it up and stuff, but really like that angle, the very basic professional wrestling angle, got across in what they did, and they didn't go too over the top with it. I mean, there was some goofy bullshit, but for the most part, like, it was pretty straight up. It was just two guys fighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the John Cena Bray Wyatt thing was a little bit more like fourth wall breaking, a little bit more like wink wink, you know, we're a bunch of marks. The people watching this are marks. You're gonna get this, but like casual people aren't gonna understand what any of that meant. That John Cena thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna be like, what the fuck? Why hasn't he just done the move? Why doesn't he do his moves and win the match? Like, what is this? So this strange swamp fight I thought was, I had hoped was gonna be more like the Undertaker thing, just like two guys having a fight, but the locale was different, you know. Yeah. And like we fucking bitched about these cinematic matches, but as we've established, they've done this shit before. Remember when fucking Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt were dicking about in some old farmhouse?
Oh, jeez, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
This shit's happened before, and they've been very stealthy about it. We've just let it slide. Well, we didn't let it slide. We were very vocal about it those times too. But like this shit's happened before, and at least that match was just like it was a brawl. It was what we wanted. We wanted two guys fighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
This match was more like the John Cena thing, in that it was like verbally telling you a story.
Yes.
It wasn't visually telling you a story. It wasn't like the time old traditional story of like good guy versus bad guy. You know, one guy has to overcome the odds. One guy has to do all this shit. You know, they have to fight to survive. Classic wrestling stuff. But this was not that, really. Braun Strowman turns up to Bray Wyatt's house, and Bray Wyatt's like the old Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, watch out, buddy. We're gonna fight you or whatever." And then they're in like the house, like a shack, and then Bray Wyatt says some shit, and then they're like,
"You've skipped a bit there. They skipped the bit where Braun."
Well, they were fighting outside, weren't they?
Yeah, Braun was fighting some randos outside, like a couple of guys in sheep masks who we've never seen before, who have no kind of, connection to anything, and then all of a sudden he gets hit in the back of the head with a shovel, and then when he looks up, he sees himself standing over him.
Yes, of course.
With the old black sheep mask and stuff. But then that didn't go anywhere because the doppelganger wasn't seen again throughout all of this.
So then they're inside, and Bray Wyatt says some stuff, and then they're outside.
Yeah, well, I think after Bray says his stuff, like they have a snake which comes and bites Braun, which kind of, I guess, poisons him and makes him fall unconscious or something. Because then he's waking up outside again, where the guys in masks are back, and they, I think one of the masks comes off or something, because he's just fighting some random guy and then throws him in the fire.
That's what I'm remembering. I must have like missed a bit where they were fighting the first time with the masks, because I remember that bit, and I was like, I thought the mask would happen after the inside of the house. But anyway, we're on the same page now.
Yes.
So then like that happens, and then Braun Strowman, his attention is drawn to like a little dock.
Mm-hmm.
And on the dock is what appears to be Sister Abigail.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually Alexa Bliss.
Yeah.
Or it's not actually Alexa Bliss. It's Alexa Bliss inside Braun Strowman's head.
I guess.
He's seeing that. Alexa Bliss isn't there. He's manifesting her image in his own head when he sees. Okay, anyway. And that, honest to God, that was the bit I liked the most about that match. I'm like, that is a nice little touch.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, because that was clearly an angle that they were elbowing towards whenever they were doing that mixed, whatever it was, mixed tag team challenge.
Yeah.
But whatever the fuck they called it, I don't know. But like, you know, you could see that they were definitely teasing that kind of thing between Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman, which was a very sweet, and I quite liked the way that they didn't go anywhere with it, because then it was kind of like a platonic thing, you know, which is quite sweet as well. But I liked that little inclusion in this match. I thought that was a nice touch, and that was well done. You know, like sometimes when you watch these cinematic matches, you're even like, the cinematic shit isn't even that well done.
Yeah.
But I thought that Alexa Bliss bit looked really good. Like, for example, you said that earlier there's a bit where Braun Strowman gets hit by the shovel.
Yes.
And it turns out it's him or whatever. The bit where he gets hit by a shovel looks like shit.
Yeah.
It's awful. Like, it doesn't look. It just looks like a shovel appeared behind him, and then he sold it. And I'm like, that's not. Oh, anyway, so he walks towards the dock to find Alexa Bliss, and then like a boat. Does the boat sidle up first, or does Bray Wyatt just fuck him into the water?
I think the boat's there first, but then Bray kind of shows up behind him whilst Braun's having a look in the boat, like assuming that he's going to be there. And then that's when they kind of finally sort of come to blows, and Braun gives him like a choke slam into the boat. And then weirdly, Braun's like, it's over. And he basically thinks, yeah, now I can leave and everything's going to be A-okay. But then the boat starts like, the boat like starts driving by itself back to the shore. But Bray has disappeared, and then then he gets as Braun's looking for him, then he gets hit in the back with like an oar or something, and that's when Bray shoves him in the water and starts trying to drown him.
And then that's it, right?
Well, no, there's still a bit more left, because
they pull him. Fucking Braun Strowman is like, he like throws, what do you call him, Bray Wyatt into the water. He's like, let's into this. But then he looks into the water, and then like the Fiend turns up and like pulls him in.
Yeah,
and then that's it.
I guess they were trying to go for like a Friday the 13th homage, like the way, not to spoil like a 40-year-old movie, but
you'll be alright.
The way that movie ends is there's like, the kind of the final girl in this dilapidated boat on the lake, thinking she's got away, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, here comes Jason to drag her under the water, and then movie ends. So like Bray pops up out of the water and then drags Braun in sort of like that with the mandible claw. But then it's really weird. It's like the water starts going blood red and bubbling and stuff. Like, has he just killed Braun or something? Like, what the fuck?
It's a good way to get your belt back,
I guess, but like...
Casual murder.
Well, where do they go from here, though? Like, he's just killed Braun, so, like...
Well, fucking Seth Rollins ripped out Rey Mysterio's eye. Is he gonna go to jail for that? Probably not.
No, but we're probably just going to get like a casual Braun Strowman versus The Fiend match at SummerSlam. Like, but how is that supposed to, like, Braun's, dead. Like, how are you going to top that when they're like exchanging, like running power slams and Sister Abigail's and stuff?
Well, they'll probably come up with some kind of really good, clever way to explain it, such as it was really Braun Strowman's twin brother that got murdered in the lake, and now Braun Strowman's doubly pissed off because like, you killed my brother, that sucks. Why'd you do that? So then they have a fight,
Mm-hmm.
I can only surmise that is the thing. So, what did you think of that?
Oh man, I did not get on with this at all. There was, like you said, like the Alexa Bliss moment kind of was all right in a way that it kind of tied into the past and stuff, but the whole part in the shack where Bray's like, yammering on at him, it's like so boring. This is like the same old Bray Wyatt shit that we've heard a million times before.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the writing of it, or like the way it was put together, is just so poor. Like, it's almost like someone's watched a couple of horror movies, but no more than 2, and decided, oh yeah, I can do that.
But not the good ones.
Yeah,
like the Devil Inside or something, Devil Inside's the worst film I've ever. That's the only film I've ever walked out of.
Oh jeez.
I paid money for that piece of shit, and I was so angry. I didn't walk out of it, but I almost did. I was like, I hate this so much, because I had like cinema tickets were so expensive. I'm like, I paid £7 for it. I want to fucking see the film. But then at the end of it, I'm like, that is one of the worst films I've ever seen. It was awful. But like, it had this air quite similar to this, right? It had that air of like, as if they were trying to write like a really smart horror film, but they'd only seen like 2 horror films. So like, this is where the twist goes, and like, then this bit, but then what happens now? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was so shit the way they did it that you're like, what the fuck? Like, have you ever, like, nobody ends a film like this. Fuck you, And it was similar to this match, right? In that a lot of it, like the end of it, Braun Strowman's like, well, that's the end of this, and then they put the WWE logo up, right?
Yeah.
To indicate the end of the show. So I'm like, well, I guess that's the end of the show. And there was only like 10, 20 seconds left. And then the Fiend brings down Braun Strowman into the water, and that's the end of that. I'm like, I almost missed that bit, which is crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly important that they killed Braun Strowman. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing about this whole show, like top to bottom. In a weird way, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because I thought we would be bitching about cinematic matches a lot more. But it turns out the Rey Mysterio match wasn't that cinematic. And the bar fight didn't happen. It's going to happen on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever time this show goes up at. So while we didn't end up bitching about how stupid a lot of these cinematic matches were, there still ended up being a lot of dumb shit on the show.
Yeah.
Which was disappointing. Because I thought, hey, at least if half the stuff isn't going to suck, we might get away with it, like a good show. And there were some good points.
Mm-hmm.
But there were an awful lot of, like, you know, not interesting to bad points. You know what
yeah.
I mean, there was stuff that was just okay.
Yeah, and like we mentioned before about like the whole idea, I guess, being to try and encourage people to tune into Raw and SmackDown to find out what happens next. Like, I can't say there's anything on this show that really made me care enough to want to like tune in to see what happens next. Like, a lot of it was just kind of decisions which you know don't really make a lot of narrative sense, or just stand out for good reasons or anything like that. It's just lazy storytelling again.
Right. Nothing stood out for any good reason. That's a really good way to put it. But a lot of stuff stands out for not being good.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't watch Raw, but if I was going to watch it, the only two reasons I would have watched it were because of Asuka and Kairi Sane. Because given the way that the awful fucking way that they botched the ending of that Asuka match, in the back of my head was like, I would not be surprised if they did actually take the belt off Asuka like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had that, but again, that's not a good reason to watch the show. That was like a real like sense of dread that they would do something horrible, which they've done many a time in the past. And then also I'd heard rumors that Kairi Sane was going to be finishing up with the company soon, so that had me intrigued about watching Raw as well. But again, that was never mentioned on the show. So if you watched Extreme Rules, whatever the fuck, then you wouldn't have known that Kairi Sane may or may not be going back to Japan. And to be honest, like all they did with her for months was just put her in the ring with Nia Jax over and over again.
Yeah.
So I don't blame her for going back to Japan. She'd be better off over there.
Yeah, absolutely.
God, I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Why? And Kairi Sane was getting really good. She was like starting to get a really good character. The Kabuki Warriors were fun. Like they when they threw those two together, they were like, oh, the two Japanese people together. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
But like they made it interesting. They had cool looks. They were like heels. Like they had personality. It was fun and it was going somewhere. And they let that fucking disappear because they're WWE are idiots. Anyway, I didn't think Extreme Rules was good.
Yeah.
Like it was like middle of the road. There's no reason to watch that show again.
No, definitely not.
Some of the matches were fun to a point. A lot of them weren't good.
Yeah.
So that's our review, I guess. You know what the annoying thing is that we both just sound like really dejected. We're both like weary. We're not even like outraged that it's a shitty show or, angry at anything. We're just disappointed.
Yeah.
We're just like, this again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like resigned disappointment.
Yeah, you're like, well, there it is. We were right. Something really not interesting happened. But not like offensively horrible.
Mm.
You know, like that's what annoys me about. Like I still don't really watch All Elite Wrestling anymore, but every so often I just hear stuff about it, and I'm like, it sounds so like dumb. You know what I mean? I'm just like, ah. And then the WWE just put on stuff that varies wildly between dumb and uninteresting.
Mm.
And you're just like, why can't you just do wrestling? They're making me want to go back and watch Impact again.
Well,
Party is really good.
Yeah, like the Slammiversary show on Saturday sounds like we should have probably watched that instead of.
Fucking should have watched that. Do you want to watch that? Do you want to watch that next week? Talk about that.
Yeah.
Because God, when was the last time we watched or did a review of a good fucking wrestling show?
It's been a while, it seems like.
I mean, I do understand the name of the show is Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense, and we've been covering that pretty comprehensively. I think we're due for a good show at some point, though. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. Just give us some good wrestling, please.
Just for once. Just give it a show that doesn't suck. Please. Not with dumb finishes, and not with cinematic bullshit, and not with fucking eyes coming out, not with like 60 dusty finishes. Yeah, just give us some fun matches, I guess NXT is what we should be watching. Well, not really, because the last time we watched NXT, there was a stupid cinematic match in the middle of it. So.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Oops. Oh, God. Well, I guess we could watch All Elite Wrestling. Oh, it's got stupid cinematic matches in it. We should be watching TNA. You know what? We were right all along. Impact. We're going to have to start watching Impact from now on.
Yeah.
But, can you believe that? If you went back to the beginning of the year, given the way wrestling was, you know what I mean? Cut to 7 months later, we are like, I think we should watch Impact because that seems like the best show. How bad do those other two companies have had to fuck up? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God! Not to bring anything away from Impact, but there's a reason we both stopped watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And which also scares me at the idea that in a couple of years' time, we might be going, wow, wrestling sucks so bad, maybe we should start watching All Elite Wrestling again. I don't want that. I don't want that feature,
Uh-huh.
Is there anything else you want to say about the show before we wrap things up?
I think we pretty much covered everything I wanted to talk about, so.
We did. Well, yeah. We covered it pretty well, I think. And now that it's over and done with, we'll never have to talk about it again.
Oh, thank God for that.
Never again. So there you go. Next week on the show, we're gonna watch we'll just watch some old WCW pay-per-views and see what's worse. That's a good idea. We should do that actually.
Yeah.
That'd be a really good idea. Because spoiler alert, some of the old WCW pay-per-views not so good.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they didn't have any cinematic bullshit.
Yeah.
That's debatable. Who did they electrocute in the chair? Was it Abdullah the Butcher?
Oh, that's true. But I mean, if you watch it, it was definitely not cinematic.
I'll give you that. I mean, that's fair. Unless the director was blind.
Yeah.
Then you're like, wow, you did a really good job, Charlie. What a great film you made, Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we'll wrap things up for now. Thank you very much for listening. Let us know what you guys thought about Extreme Rules. And we'll be back next week with another amazing podcast that won't have anything to do with Extreme Rules.
Thank God.
We're very excited about that. We're very excited. So anyway, we'll see you guys later. Remember, wear a mask and stay safe, etc. And we'll see you later.